On behalf of the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, it is indeed my honor to welcome you to the inaugural session of the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021. The lighting of the traditional oil lamp symbolizes the inauguration of the PGIHS Research Congress. May I call upon the following distinguished guests to light the oil lamp. Our esteemed chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor M.D. Lamavansa, Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor W.M.T. Madhujit, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Dr. E.M.P.C.S. Ekanayaka, Director of PGIHS, Professor Suresh J.S. Dimel, former Director of PGIHS, Professor J.M.A. Jayavikrama, Chairperson of the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021, Professor W.A. Lianake. Representing Board of Management and UGC, Dr. V. Nanayakara. Representing Boards of Study, we invite the Chair of the host BOS, Dr. Sunanda Premasiri. Representing the teaching panel and technical sessions, Professor K.T. Silva. Representing the Administrative and Finance Departments, Assistant Registrar PGIHS, Mr. KMCU Champika, and Assistant Bursar PGIHS, Mr. MHM Rias. Representing presenters of PGIHS Research Congress and students of PGIHS, Ms. Yamuna Lenaduwa. Thank you, everyone. May I now invite the following distinguished guests to the head table, please. Our esteemed chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Director of PGIHS, former Director PGIHS, Chairperson of the PGIHS Research Congress 2021. May I invite Professor Suresh J.S. Thimal, Director, PGIHS, to deliver the welcome address.
Reverend members of the clergy, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021. To our chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, a warm welcome to Peradeniya and best wishes for a memorable day. Your Excellency, I understand that this may be your first visit to Peradeniya. I certainly hope that it will not be your last. Also to the Assistant High Commissioner in Kandy and First Secretary, even though this is not your first visit to Peradeniya, let me still welcome you to PGIHS. To the keynote speaker, the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka in Bangladesh, His Excellency Professor Sudarshan Senivaratna, who is joining online. A warm welcome back home to Peradeniya and to PGIHS. To the Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor, I believe that this is your first visit to a PGIHS event in an official capacity after taking up office. On behalf of PGIHS and its Board of Management, may I extend a heartfelt welcome and grateful thanks for the support given to the work of PGIHS. To my fellow directors of postgraduate institutes, Dean Arts, and deans of other faculties, other invited guests, including librarian, registrar, and bursar, Board of Management and Boards of Study members who are physically present in the auditorium and in the boardrooms downstairs or online, a warm welcome indeed to the PGIHS Research Congress. To our teaching panel members and resource persons, presenters, and postgraduate students who are online. My apologies that we were unable to invite you all to join with us physically due to the current situation, but with the available technology, we are glad that we are able to welcome you virtually. Let me make use of this opportunity to give some background information on PGIHS. PGIHS was set up by parliamentary ordinance in 2013 as a National Institute of Higher Learning affiliated to the University of Peradeniya. With the appointment of its first director, who I am glad to note is present with us today, the Board of Management and the Boards of Study in 2015, all postgraduate programs previously offered under the Faculty of Arts were transferred to the PGIHS. Teaching and research at PGIHS encompasses a wide range of disciplines within the humanities and social sciences. This includes typical humanities and social sciences disciplines such as archaeology, economics, geography, history, philosophy, political science, psychology, sociology. Language and literature disciplines such as Arabic, English, Sinhala, Tamil. Religious and cultural studies disciplines such as Buddhist studies, Greek and Roman studies, Hindu civilization, Islamic studies, Pali, and Sanskrit. Aesthetic disciplines such as fine arts, and also more overarching disciplines like education and law. In addition to these specific discipline-related programs, the PGIHS also offers programs that are more interdisciplinary in nature and targeted to professional groups. This includes programs in development practice, environmental management, human rights and multiculturalism, international relations, social work, and sustainable tourism. These study programs are offered under 5 boards of study, namely the Board of Study for Economics and Management, Language and Literature Studies, Philosophy, Psychology and Education, Religious and Cultural Studies, and Social Sciences. Research at PGIHS mainly takes place within the MPhil and PhD research degree programs in the above-mentioned disciplines. The annual student intake to all programs is around 1,000, with about 800 students graduating each year. I'm happy to note today that despite the pandemic situation, the 2021 academic year, which commenced in December 2020, was just completed in November 2021, within 1 year. A special thanks to the teaching panel members, resource persons, and students who rose up to the challenge of online learning. We are now preparing for the next intake for the academic year 21-22 in December. The Research Congress presents mostly the work of our own postgraduate students. Presenting research findings to an academic audience like this is an essential part of academic training, and the Congress provides this opportunity to our postgraduate research students. Although there were several efforts to conduct this Congress during 2020 and 2021, all these attempts had to be postponed due to pandemic-related challenges. However, much of the substantive work, including the abstract review and acceptance process, even the recording of presentations, took place during these failed attempts. Hence, much of the credit of this Congress should go to the leadership given by the former director, Professor Ananda Jayavikrama. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to the former director for all the prior work that has taken place during his tenure. And I would close my words by extending an invitation to Professor Jayavikrama to now speak a few words as well. Thank you.
Deputy Vice Chancellor and the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Director of the PGIHS, and the PGIHS Research Congress Chairperson, and all the invited guests. So today we are here to mark the inauguration of PGIHS Research Congress 2021. Now, as the Director just inform you about the process that we followed during the last 2 years to conduct this research congress. Now, we started our research congress in 2017, but 2020 research congress was stuck due to the pandemic situation. But we complete the process of getting articles and reviewing process and all the matters related to the congress, and waited until the matters or the pandemic situation is to conduct it. Today, I am happy to see that the Indian High Commissioner is here, as our chief guest and the Vice Chancellor. And so we know that this Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences started in 2015 with a kind of attempt taken by the Faculty of Arts and the university to establish it as a separate institute. Initially, though we not received much support from the top to establish this institute, today we are with firm standing in postgraduate education and research in humanities and social sciences. Now this institute is contributing to the country and to the world by offering postgraduate degrees, taught programs, and also research degree programs to in various disciplines, and now we are introducing new degree programs as well. Since the director has informed you about the basic facts of the Postgraduate Institute, what I am referring to is the potentials that the PGIHS is having. And these potentials of PGIHS will immensely contribute to the University of Peradeniya for its progress and also for the development. Now, I state that the university ranking, quality of higher education institutes remains lot on postgraduate studies and research. We need to invest in postgraduate studies and research if we want to bring the ranking of the universities higher and quality of the universities higher. Without investing on higher learning and education, we can't bring the ranking up of these universities. Now, currently, postgraduate studies in Sri Lanka, self-driven. Students have to pay their own pockets, by their own pockets to have their degree programs. But at least for research degree programs, we need to have state-sponsored funding and facilities to expand research and development. So this PGIHS also, now it is contributing to the research part as well, but we need support from the government to expand its research activities and the development part. Now the institute is contributing to the country in a way that we introduce new market-driven professional postgraduate degree programs. Now various government institutions are now collaborating with the PGIHS to offer degrees and train their workforce. So as Professor Suresh Dimal mentioned, that we have tourism-related degree programs, we have community development degree programs, we have development practice degree programs, and we are waiting to get the approval for public sector management degree programs, and we just to start banking degree programs. So we have done a lot of homework, and we have completed those to offer these new degree programs. The pandemic has prevented the progress of the institute over the last 2 years. The last year of my period was a kind of, I believe that I could not deliver to the expectations that I had to complete when I complete my 2 terms. That is due to the pandemic, but we somehow went on and get the institute going on even during the period of pandemic. We completed all of our exams and at the time that we have to complete it. So I think in that sense, the institute has made a remarkable progress. So I invite you all to participate and you all to observe the capacity and the potentials that the PGIHS is having. Now, Faculty of Arts is handling vast areas of studies. Now we have separate institute for postgraduate studies related to arts, humanities, and social sciences. So now the university and the Faculty of Arts, all the members of the Faculty of Arts contribute, and they should contribute to the development of the PGIHS as a kind of higher learning institute in Sri Lanka, which is in which a great service to the nation can be provided. With that note, I conclude my brief speech, and I thank the director giving me this opportunity to address this gathering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I invite the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Dr. E.M.P.C.S. Ekanayaka, to address the Congress.
Thank you very much. Very good morning, all of you. I'm very happy to see my teachers and lecturers, senior lecturers, all the members in this special occasion. So it's a privilege for me to have give a few words in front of this distinguished audience. Religious dignitaries, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, respected Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Deans of the faculties, and directors of the postgraduate institutes, especially Director of the PGIA, and heads of the department, coordinators of the postgraduate programs, all the academic members of the PGIA, PGIHS, and administrative staff of the Peradeniya University and postgraduate students. Actually, I am very much delighted to have had the opportunity to deliver a speech at the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences Research Symposium as the Dean of the Faculty of Arts. You know, the objective of this institution is to, as very correctly former director and present director mentioned, dissemination of knowledge, especially culture and efficient system of this society, introducing new knowledge, as very correctly stated over there, the vision and mission of the Postgraduate Institute of Social Sciences and Humanities. This occasion is indeed a landmark of progress. Accordingly, this institution carries on research on both fields, humanities and social sciences, especially economic and cultural issues, social issues, political issues in Sri Lanka and elsewhere in the world. It explores the possible impact of solution for such issues as well. You know, recently we experienced that a few incidents in Sri Lanka without scientific-based approaches. You know that earlier it was constructed based on the Western technology. Now it has shifted to kind of Asian technology. And we need to find out the Sri Lankan way of thinking and knowledge, especially representing South Asian area, the countries. You know that a few days ago, we opened the Golden Gate of Kalyani while singing with innocent young kids in Kenya Black Lagoon. So we need to think, while we are introducing new technology and new economic pathways to this country, how we need to improve the quality of our ordinary poor people. And also, you know that we experienced a few weeks ago landslides of that Kadugannawa mountain, that road, railway road, and the road number 1 in Sri Lanka, Colombo to Kandy, constructed by English people. But after that, I don't know is the correct word, we failed to build a proper road system, transport system from Colombo to Kandy. That's the main pathetic situation of present condition of this, our thinking pattern. So now we need to think, while we are incorporating the technology of other part of the world, how we need to introduce our pattern of thinking, our way of identifying problem and applying solution. So same way we have experience in especially this pandemic situation. We went here and there, and finally we got the vaccination. Now we are coming normally in new normal situation. And agriculture field also like that. We are doing ad hoc thing without getting feedback from wonderful research done by academics. But we are going behind myths and other, what we call unscientific way of thinking. That's why we need to encourage this type of research sessions and academic activities to overcome these important issues, I must say. Therefore, it would be said that the recommendation of such an institution, as I mentioned earlier, should be taken into account by policy and decision makers in planning and developing policies for the future, especially as a developing country. Consequently, I greatly appreciate the contribution of the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences toward the greater good of the university. Especially, I need to mention here contributors. Over here, Professor Kalinga Tiuda Silva, he is the one key person who got firm decision to establish this institution. Thank you very much, sir. You are here. I greatly appreciate your contribution, and also former director. And Professor Oji Dayaratna Banda, he contributed a lot to establish this institution. And present director now, he is conducting as expected the previous director. So as the dean of the faculty, the Faculty of Art is the mother of this institution. So I appreciate all the contribution made by that key stakeholders, that the responsible the activity you have done in the past for establishment of this institution. So with that short note, I will wind up my speak. Before that, I need to congratulate all the contributors and the presenters today. You will have a wonderful day, and you will enjoy with this presentation. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of inspiration. It is my pleasure to invite the Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Professor M.D. Lamavansa, to address the Congress.
A very good morning to all of you, venerable sirs, the chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Gopal Bagle, the keynote speaker, my good friend, Professor Sudarshana Senaviratne, His Excellency the High Commissioner in Bangladesh, representing Sri Lanka, Director Professor Suresh Dimel, and all the other senior academic and non-academic administrators and researchers, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Chief guest, sir, on behalf of the university, I welcome you to this university. As was said, this, I think, is not going to be your first visit. This is the first visit, but this is not the last visit. And the interaction that we had with you for about an hour in the morning has shown the clarity in which you think about this country and also about the University of Peradeniya. During the last 3 months of my office, this is the third occasion a senior team from Indian High Commission visiting Peradeniya. And that shows how committed you are to establish and progress links that have already established with University of Peradeniya. And sir, always we welcome you and your team and for mutual cooperation which can span much beyond what we have already established. And also convey my regards to your good friend who was in Moscow and who was my elder brother-like and to whom I always went for some advice. I understand he's back in Delhi. Hope that you will invite him to come to Sri Lanka. He hasn't actually, and with his lovely wife, so that we can entertain him, the family in Kandy as well. And your team, juniors, have been working very closely with our teams here so that we can think for a brighter future. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be here to address the annual Congress 2020-2021 of the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences in my capacity as the Vice Chancellor. I am grateful to the Director and all the staff of the PGIHS and the others who have taken great effort to continue this annual session despite the global pandemic. At the outset, let me state that the University of Peradeniya is proud to be providing a shelter to the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences in a broader sense, which provides you the postgraduate degrees and the diplomas relevant to many disciplines in this country. I also note that the wider array of disciplines and the interests that you have developed within a very short period of time. And you have progressed very well. And these themes, like what you mentioned, social sciences, heritage, culture, psychology, education, environment, all overlap with the interest of the wider university, and especially in terms of community engagement that we are trying to foster more and more. I'm sure the Council will take note of in its initiatives to collaborate and use the PGIS, Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, as a vehicle to reach out to the community. Talking a little bit more on the work that you have been already doing and the areas that we could easily expand into include identifying major research areas relevant to social development, especially in rural and disadvantaged settings. There may be international donors who would be very happy to work in these areas. Our culture, heritage, religious studies are other large areas that you are already working, and the relevance of Indian High Commissioner, the Excellency's presence here is that, of course, India has advanced in its technology to match the rest of the world, but our ties with India goes back to beyond these technological advances. So these are some of the areas where we have deep roots in Greater India on which we can explore further collaboration. Now, as the Dean mentioned, there are special issues that both social, economic, and many other areas. Maybe it is the farmers, maybe state workers, and different communities who live in this city and around. And we should be able to collectively work towards addressing their issues for sustainable development. And also contribution to national policies without a partisan approach is something that our postgraduate institutes and the university at large could do, irrespective of who is in power. And we have a very good opportunity using the postgraduate institutes to collaborate with state and non-state agencies, and some already you are having such, and as was mentioned by the director, and includes in research, training, and many other areas. And we should be able to, I'm sure, seek funds for such purposes. And international collaboration is something that we can work more and for mutual benefit. And we have been living in symbiosis, the Faculty of Arts, the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the main university. The symbiosis can be more stronger and more broader, in my opinion, and we can forge much close and strong collaboration. To achieve that, we have overlapping interest, and also the values and the goals that you have identified by your senior colleagues in yesteryears well resonate with that kind of notion. And let me now speak a few words to the students who are joining online, and some may be here even in this audience. And we conduct research, and what is it for? Is it just to get a degree and for you to get a better job? Or else, is it to improve your knowledge and skills while you are acquiring yet another degree? Or else, is it to publish something and add some new knowledge and convert that to some kind of a product? And that product may be a policy change or some invention. It could be anything, so that we walk that extra mile to implement our research outcomes. I think in all these purposes are relevant to the students when they take on research activities. So then, looking at the research process, which postgraduate students are inundated with and having some problems time and again, includes both inputs, the processes, and the outcomes. Let me spend a couple of minutes sharing some of the ideas that I have on these issues, but of course it is not a full account on these aspects. Researchers should concentrate more on inputs and processes, young researchers, rather than preoccupied with the results of the outcomes and whatever that outcome might be. Process include, of course, defining your research question. Sometimes it takes years and you keep on changing that. And design, if the design is good and the outcome will be good, and also the publications is very easy. Preparation of a detailed proposal, and that scientific writing and proposal writing is so useful for you to cultivate to develop your proposal. And finding an institution and supervisors, you have abundance of such facilities here. And defining a team, because the teamwork is so important that you learn from each other, even if they are coming from a different specialty. Obtaining various clearances, including ethical clearance. And sometimes it is difficult, but it's so much better to go through that difficult task. At the end, you will get the benefits of it. And of course, the funding and managing funds, again, part of the research, and conducting pilot study. Sometimes you tend to underestimate how relevant the pilot studies are, and the data collection, analysis, and writing and publishing, and so on. And a few more words about some of these things. Selecting a research topic, for example. Often, beginners are confused and rather anxious in deciding on a topic. They keep on changing. There's no problem. We all have gone through this phase. Guidebooks are full of instruction on how to select a research topic, and your seniors will help you. All in all, deciding factors are whether you have a strong opinion on a current controversy or requirement in the country. Beginners are not encouraged, however, to select a topic that is too narrow or broad. I'm sure the senior academics here might disagree with me, but this is only one view. They should be prepared to be flexible, to make some adjustments to the title of the thesis as they proceed, which I did. Literature survey, brainstorming, and formulating a thesis statement all are useful steps to identify a topic relevant to you. Some of you are probably at this stage. Sometimes you feel empty to decide on a theme. Don't worry. Here we have never ending uncharted territories to navigate. Let me give one example. Late Professor Vinay Vitarana, whom some of the senior teachers know, a brilliant academic who ended up his career, retired from University of Pune, who passed away a few, I think it's about 2 or 3 years ago. Research on the Oruva. The monograph was titled The Dugout Outrigger Canoe of Sri Lanka, and the Yatra by Vinay Vitarana in 1992. He kept on writing on this one. Somebody would have thought, and what is there to write about? But he produced excellent articles on this. Interdisciplinary and interdisciplinary research is so important for us to share our thoughts with the others, which I'm not going to explain further, except to say that good example of this is the discovery of the magnetic resonance imaging. And it was by a chemist and a physicist. If alone they tried, they would have never invented the MRI scan, which we are using day in, day out. Researchers at the end of their research projects are expected to write a thesis, but very often, and you end up with thesis. There is no mandatory requirement in our system to produce some index journals articles as a support to your thesis. And some of us, when we conducted our research and research degrees, and what the supervisor said was, you must plan to publish this work in this journal. So it was said from the beginning because they could see how it could evolve over a period of time, and they supported us to do that. I think having a couple of research articles will help somebody to face the interviews and to defend the thesis. And the patience and discipline to become a scientific writer takes, of course, and long years. Postgraduate research degree may be awarded to a candidate who has successfully completed a program of scholarly research and who's produced a thesis, significant original contribution to knowledge. Or else sometime, and we know that if there are multiple research articles, and that could be the base or the basis to award a research degree. Writing an article or thesis is easier when correct protocols and the procedures have been followed in carrying out the project. Procrastination in writing thesis or article is mainly due to the fear of failure. We all, time and again, we don't like to write because we think that we may not write well. There is no perfect research or perfect research article that we learn over a period of time. And there is a mandatory failure rate. For a fear of failing, if nothing is written, the failure rate is excellent. It is 0 because you have not written anything except your thesis. Writing, dear students, should commence from early stages and progress in an incremental manner by trial and error. Binge writing is best left to the rare expert. Some of them are here. Rejections and revisions are part of the research process, and great learning. And is a great learning experience, but can be minimized by taking appropriate measures. Each sentence you write has to be considered as the last version. Due to the computers, we don't consider it as the last version. Yesteryears and our seniors, they did not have even a typewriter, so they thought that it was going to be the last version of the sentence. In the initial phase itself, the supervisor's corrections needed to be studied thoroughly, beyond their face values. A lot of us tend to take it on their face value and try to understand the reasons behind them and improve. For the supervisors and the teachers, dear colleagues, predicament of a day one postgraduate research students, when you and I started this, if we go back to that day, we will find it easy to understand the mentality of the researchers of today. We often forget that. Just let me give one example. Look at this scenario. A 28-year-old female graduate who has passed the final examination with a class, although not rich, without looking for a job, wants to engage in a research project and to read for an MPhil. She is unmarried. Only little time, if at all, having any family support, or she has to support the family because her parents are not well. She has a boyfriend who is not helpful and who is giving troubles to her. And she has had bad experiences in the past as an undergraduate. But she has full hopes, but a lot of uncertainties. Imagine this situation. Unknown supervisors, unknown institute, no known co-researchers in this institute. Can you imagine her predicament? This is, colleagues, where we should be supporting these students to come up and achieve their best. There could be problems with the supervisors, the prestige institute like you. I am sure you address them. The students, there are highs and lows during your research career. Don't get worried about them. And the life in itself is a challenge. It is a journey with ups and downs, and so is during that journey of completing a thesis. We all have experienced that. Sometimes you completely stop doing anything related to the research for 1 or 2 weeks and come back. And you come back with more vigor. One doesn't need to be self-blamed, and that is a very bad thing which could happen. That is where the supervisors and the colleagues could help, and talking to your friends, even from outside your field, family, and those who have successfully completed projects and taken time off, all that help you to achieve your final target. His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and it has been a very pleasant occasion once again for me to address you. And while thanking once again for that invitation, I wish you, the Institute, and also the conference, the great success. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for your presence here with us today and for your words of encouragement. We are honored to have with us our chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle. To introduce the chief guest, let me invite Dr. Purnika Seelagama, the Editor-in-Chief, PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021.
Thank you, Aishi. Allow me now to introduce to you our esteemed chief guest of the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle. With a master's degree in chemistry, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle is a chemist by profession who is able to speak 7 languages. He's fluent in Hindi, Urdu, Sanskrit, English, Ukrainian, Russian, and Nepali languages. His language proficiency has much to do with his career in diplomatic services. His experience in foreign services runs back nearly 30 long years when he started off as the 3rd Secretary of the Embassy of India in Ukraine in 1994. Thereafter, he served as the 2nd Secretary in the Embassy of India in Russia from 1996 to 1999, and as 1st Secretary in the High Commission of India in London, UK, from 1999 to 2002. Mr. Gopal Bagle has also served as Deputy High Commissioner of India to Pakistan from 2011 to 2014, and as Counselor in charge of Press, Information, and Culture in the Embassy of India in Nepal. Prior to his current assignment as High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle was serving as Joint Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office in India since 2017. He has also served in various capacities in the Ministry of External Affairs between 2002 and 2011. With that, I would like to hereby invite our distinguished Chief Guest, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, to address our gathering.
Thank you very much for such an elaborate and warm introduction. For me, I feel very humbled, and I don't know if I would be able to justify in my brief remarks to this distinguished audience any of what has been said about me, but I'm very grateful for that. Venerable members of the Mahasangha, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya, Professor M.D. Lamavansa, His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Bangladesh, Professor Sudarshana D.S. Senaviratne, who will be joining us in virtual mode today, I understand. Director of the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences of the University of Peradeniya, Professor Suresh J.S. Timel, other distinguished dignitaries on the dais, deans of the faculties, scientists, academicians, students, ladies and gentlemen, Ayubovan, Namaskar, Vanakkam, Salam Alaikum, and a very good morning to all of you. I'm indeed very greatly honored to be here today at this Research Congress in the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences. This is a historic and premier campus. University of Peradeniya is a leading university of not only Colombo, of not only Sri Lanka, but also in the region and the world, because it has produced a number of renowned experts, scientists who have contributed very significantly to the world of knowledge, to the betterment of life in Sri Lanka and beyond Sri Lanka's borders. Not only that, they have gone out of here and forged the bond of friendship, of collaboration, of cooperation, and I'm very proud to say that many of them have contributed to strengthening the bonds between academic experts and students with my country, India. Today morning when I woke up in my hotel near the town of Kandy, I saw the mist surrounding the hills and the greenery and the famous Mahaveli River flowing through. It was such an uplifting sight. In the midst of nature, this environment is perfect. And one regret that I might have later in my life, that I was never a student here. But nevertheless, today's visit, I think, will briefly compensate for that huge loss. And as I joined the distinguished Vice Chancellor in his lodge, and I was coming down to this place. We had a brief conversation, and I agree with everything you have said about our ties in the academic sphere and the endeavors that we have had, distinguished Vice Chancellor, Professor Lamavansa. And when we were driving down to this hall, I saw the statue of Lord Ivor Jennings, or rather Sir Ivor Jennings, whose road to Paradenia actually led to the highway of knowledge, highway of learning. In that book, Road to Paradenia, he had said somewhere about his working. He came here, as we all know, in his late 30s, actually to Colombo, not knowing that he would have another job, which is to shift part of that campus to here, to Paradenia, which would later on become University of Paradenia. About his enormous work, somewhere in that book, The Road to Paradenia, he writes, and I quote, "It had not been a 9-to-4 job. Quite often, it had been not only 9 to 4 p.m. job, but also 4 to 9 p.m. job, and even 4 to 9 a.m. job." I'm sure that many of the students and academic experts and senior faculty here have burnt the midnight oil, literally. Your hard work, your dedication to your respective field, your dedication and commitment to attaining levels of excellence which surpass that have been achieved in the past is the key to the progress, not only of you, every one of you and us in our lives, but the humanity. And I am absolutely sure that the proceedings of this Congress will reflect the hard work, the sweat, the thinking, the long hours spent with pen and paper, laptop nowadays, will be adequately reflected in the proceedings of this Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very grateful, therefore, for this honor bestowed upon me to be invited to this distinguished gathering, to this distinguished Congress. And in the first place, to the University of Paradenia itself. So thank you very much for bestowing that honor on me. And as we were walking into this hall, we were ushered in with the traditional Kendian dance, to the beating of the Kendian drum, to the rhythm of the dance and the chanting of auspicious rituals, I believe. And then here we came to the lighting of the auspicious lamp. Why I mention these elements? I mention these elements because these are some of those elements which are common to the country that I represent and in the country that I represent my country, which is India and Sri Lanka. You all know the great connectivity, the common heritage, the shared links of civilization, faiths, religion, language, culture, archaeology, history that we have. I do not need to dwell on that. But I would just like to mention that today's Congress itself reflects a very deep shared element that has enriched both our civilizations of India's and Sri Lanka's. And what is that element? Research. I don't know Sinhala very well. Atira knows that. The word for research in Sanskrit or Hindi is anusandhan. And in Sinhala, it is something, excuse me for my mispronunciation, prayeshana. Pareshana. What is this inquiry? This inquiry, this research, is into the very basics of our existence. When Vedas, the oldest known written books, opened the avenues for the mankind, for the humankind of knowledge, they spoke athato brahma jigyasa. What they're going to say, what they're going to write, is all about knowing the creation and the creator. And when Buddha meditated, he went deep into the human psyche, the human mind, the inner self. And he opened another line of inquiry, another avenue of research, another avenue of contemplation. So our civilizations, our societies, our knowledge that we have shared and inherited have had these traditions, these commonalities. And this rich tradition of research, of inquiry into not only the external universe, but our own internal universe also. And this is where the two combine, the outer world and the inner world, just as the two disciplines combine science and humanities. Honorable Vice Chancellor spoke, and before that also, the distinguished speakers mentioned multidisciplinary approach, interdisciplinary pursuit. I think in India and in Sri Lanka, this interdisciplinary approach to research, to understanding the outer world, the inner world, somehow it is part of our ethos, part of our thinking. It is not anything new to us. What is new now is the application for the betterment of society, for the betterment of the people, for our compatriots, and for contribution to the larger good of the whole humanity. Because in India, we have always believed in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is but one family, just as in Buddhism we pray, Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam, may all beings be happy, may all beings be bestowed with auspiciousness. And this similarity not only is in terms of inquiry, but also in terms of the imagery that we conjure, the ideas that come up, the sentiments we feel, and what we come up with as a result in our culture, in our literature, in our music, in our songs. And as I say this, I'm reminded of the famous song written by an author well known in India, but perhaps in Sri Lanka also, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who wrote Vande Mataram, and the Sri Lankan national anthem, which also respectfully sees Mother Lanka in an anthropomorphic form as a mother, as a human being. See what a subtle way to connect with your country, which social sciences describe nation as a community and state as having 4 elements: territory, community, population, and governance. But how our people have been connecting our mind and our sentiments with nation? By visualizing them as mother. And what type of mother? In Sri Lanka, our national anthem, Sri Lanka's national anthem, if I may respectfully just quote the first verse, part of the first verse. What type of mother? Sundara Shri Barani Surandiyati Shobhamana Lanka. Sorry for my pronunciation. But look at what Bankim Chandra Chatterjee says about Mother India, Bharat Mata. Vande Mataram, Sujalam, Sufalam, Malayaja Shitalam, Sasya Shamalam, Mataram. The mother, the motherland, where the land is lush green, Sasya Shamalam. Sujalam, Siflam, where the water is flowing and coming out in fruits, in products. Where the cool wind is blowing, Malyaj Shitalam, to that mother I bow. So our imagery, our ethos have been so common that sometimes we don't even realize it. Sometimes we don't even notice that the sari that Athira is wearing and many of the distinguished ladies here are wearing basically represent the same cultural dress. We fail to notice it. What our effort as the High Commission is to bring out these things into sharper relief. And according to the contemporary requirements, pool in efforts, yours and ours. Pool in resources, yours and ours. Combine the requirements, yours and ours. And come up with what is of common good to our two countries, to our two peoples, and to the larger humanity. Why I keep coming back to larger humanity? Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is the ethos of our civilizations. Just as the knowledge which Vedas spoke of is for the entire world, so is the Buddha's message. So not only in the pursuit of knowledge, but in the objective of that knowledge, that pursuit also, our countries, our two civilizations are united. They have the same common aim and objective. And therefore, again, it is a special pleasure for me and my colleagues to be here at this Research Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, after saying, I'll come back a little bit later to India-Sri Lanka collaboration in the sphere of education and pursuit of research. But I would like to say that for creation of the future world, we should heavily rely on combining the merits of technology, the ideals of humanity, which are enshrined in our empathetical vision and ethics, and some seamlessly integrating various disciplines. For example, if we take an area of agriculture, which is such a key to our betterment, to our prosperity, and forms the very basis in many societies, including India and Sri Lanka, the very basis of life and progress. I think our research institutes have come up and should continue to come up with technological breakthroughs which shift the frontiers of production and which result into reduction of post-harvest losses through food processing. Which could also include research on nanomaterials in agriculture to reduce wastage in use of agrochemicals, minimize nutrient losses, increase the yield through pest and nutrient management, and protect our farmers against adverse effect of climate. Why I mention these areas? Because they combine science and humanities. In the proceedings of the abstracts of the proceedings, I saw a number of topics dealing with economics, dealing with agriculture, dealing with application of data, etc. But agriculture is an example of an area where science and humanities as we know them, they merge, and their application can lead to mutually beneficial results, not only for the scientific community, but also for the wider society at large. Ladies and gentlemen, the relationship between India and Sri Lanka, which I spoke about, tends to be further enriched through our collaboration in education. The government of India has introduced a new national educational policy last year, in which multidisciplinary subjects can be studied under a particular course at school and college level. Further, educational reforms undertaken in India have helped to lift our rank from 81 in 2015 to 46 in the Global Innovation Index. Evidently, we have a long way to go. But even as we continue that journey, we are very happy to partner Sri Lanka and our dear friends in Sri Lanka. We have been cooperating in the area of science and technology, where there are both governmental mechanisms as well as collaboration between institutes. In agriculture itself, there is a work plan between Indian Council of Agricultural Research and Sri Lankan Council of Agricultural Research and Policy, SLCARP. Now, what we require to do is to strengthen these areas of cooperation, and I'm very happy that my conversation today at the lodge of the distinguished Vice Chancellor has given us some more ideas regarding the same. Our collaboration in capacity building, education, and skill development has been consistently increasing. Currently, India offers more than 400 fully funded slots, funded by Government of India, that is, every year to officials as well as other eligible citizens of Sri Lanka for short-term training in various prestigious institutions in India to enhance skill sets and for sharing of experience. Now, because of the difficulties imposed by COVID pandemic last year, many of these interactions were virtual, but now we are very happy that we will be starting to receive our Sri Lankan friends back again for these short-term courses in the near future. And again, this is an area where I had the occasion to briefly have a conversation with the distinguished Vice Chancellor today. Under this program, which is called iTech, there are a number of areas such as health, Ayurveda, yoga, governance, administration, policing, energy, entrepreneurship, banking and management. All these areas are covered. So these are not only for the academics, but also for civil servants and eligible citizens from the other segments of the society. In terms of bilateral cooperation in the areas of renewable energy, climate change, and sustainable development, our cooperation is we look upon this area as a robust area for mutually beneficial cooperation. In June this year, we have agreed to provide a US $100 million solar line of credit to Sri Lanka, whereby projects are to be taken in a number of areas for solar projects. Mostly these will be to light individual buildings with solar power. We have, as you all know, the neighborhood first policy, which puts emphasis on the quick response also in humanitarian situations, and we are very pleased and very honored that we have been able to stand with Sri Lanka in difficult times through thick and thin. India's development cooperation in Sri Lanka now has crossed more than $3.5 billion in the last few years. And one of the examples which has touched a wide section of the Sri Lankan population is the 1990 Suvas area ambulance service. Again, we are looking at avenues to further expand this program. Before I conclude, I must reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, once again my gratitude for being able to be here at your invitation, at your kind invitation today, and for giving me the opportunity. But I must also reiterate that both India and Sri Lanka are natural partners. Our partnership across various fields is directed towards making a substantive impact on the lives of common people, as I mentioned in the earlier part of my remarks. I invite all of you, the scholars and academics from Sri Lanka, and your colleagues who are not in this auditorium but outside, to fully avail of the opportunities put forward by both the countries and our governments for the advancement of research, innovation, and progress for the betterment of society. I wish this research symposium, the Congress of the Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, a great success. I have seen briefly in the abstracts a number of very exciting areas pertaining to economics and management, culture, language, literature, heritage, religious studies, social sciences, environment, education, philosophy, and psychology, even regarding Buddha Shasana, effect of meditation as an analgesic, the concept of punya and papa, and how leadership qualities are enshrined in some of the scriptures. These are really very, very exciting areas, and I am sure you will have very productive and fruitful discussions. Thank you once again on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues from the High Commission and the Assistant High Commission in Kandy for giving us this honor to be with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. To present our token of appreciation to the chief guest, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, I call upon the Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Professor M.D. Lamavansa. We now request the members of the head table to resume their seats in the audience for the keynote speech. We are honored indeed to have the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Bangladesh and Emeritus Professor of University of Peradeniya, His Excellency Professor Sudarshan D.S. Senaviratna with us today to deliver the keynote address. To introduce the keynote speaker, let me invite Professor Suresh J.S. Thimal on stage.
Reverend members of the clergy, the chief guest, the Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, directors of postgraduate institutes, deans of faculties, invited guests, board of management and boards of study members, teaching panel members, presenters, and postgraduate students who are online. I'm indeed honored to be introducing the keynote speaker for the Research Congress, His Excellency Professor Sudarshan Senaviratna, High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Bangladesh, and Emeritus Professor, University of Peradeniya. Professor Sudarshan Senaviratna completed his BA in History at Delhi University and went on to obtain his master's and doctoral degrees at Jawaharlal Nehru University. He joined the academic staff of the Department of Archaeology, where he served as both head of department and professor of archaeology. During his academic career, he held visiting academic appointments at several prestigious universities in the US and in India, including his alma mater, JNU. He has published extensively in both Sri Lankan and international publications, for which he has received the NRC Merit Award for Scientific Publications in 2015. Professor Seneviratne has also provided an immense service to the nation in the area of archaeological conservation and heritage management, including appointments as the Director General of the UNESCO Central Cultural Fund, as founder member of the Postgraduate Institute of Archaeology, and also as member of the Advisory Board to the Director General of Archaeology. Professor Seneviratne has also been actively engaged in international affairs with many positions, and I will just highlight just the position that he held as the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India in 2014, but now, as we know, he's the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Bangladesh, and also Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the Kingdom of Bhutan. So what we have in Professor Sudarshan Seneviratne is an illustrious career in academia, national service, and international affairs. Thank you, Professor Seneviratne, for having accepted our invitation to deliver this keynote address at the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-21. As much as we would have liked to have you with us here physically, we are glad that we are able to do so, at least virtually. Professor Seneviratne, the floor and screen are yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Ayubowan, Vadagam, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning. Professor Lamawan sir, my friend, so happy to see you, and my good wisher for your tenure as Vice Chancellor. I know you're a person who is capable of turning things around. His Excellency, Commissioner Gopal Bagle, Namaskar. Professor Eknaikar, Dean, Faculty of Arts. Professor Suresh Demel, Director, PGIHS, and members of the Board of Management. Professor Ananda Javikrama, dear faculty colleagues, students, and fraternal friends of Peradeniya and Kandy. It is a pleasure reconnecting with the university, with my friends, the landscape, and the quality time offered to me at Peradeniya for 40 years. This presentation is based on my experience in academia over 50 years in Sri Lanka, India, and the USA as a professional archaeologist historian. I also draw upon my engagements on inclusive heritage and education done with UNESCO, SARC, and IORA. I believe I'm addressing an academic audience of professional teachers and mentors. We also speak the same language based on humanistic values. As a collective, we uphold ideals enshrined in the pursuit of knowledge based on wisdom and critical thinking. This, my friends, is the ideal situation. Contrary to this, colonialism and anarchic globalization introduced dialectical contradictions to post-colonial South Asia. We are now challenged by the hard realities of social change and vertical divisions based on misunderstood histories and identities. Its fallout severely impacted intellectuals and impeded the progress of secondary and higher education. The next generation is rapidly moving towards parochialism social fascist and fundamentalist ideologies. Humanizing and democratizing knowledge and decolonizing the mind are some of the primary remedial strategies required to resolve this attrition. It is then expected to witness the rise of an intellectually independent next generation, representing the best of humanistic traditions worthy of global citizens in the improvement of quality of life and thinking. My presentation, therefore, has the following trajectory. Firstly, there is evidently a crisis due to subversion of knowledge and a simultaneous alienation of the next generation and public intellectuals. Secondly, the need for a remedial strategy calling for a paradigm shift. It is about redefining the futuristic role of education based to its primary stakeholders in a globalized cosmopolitan world. Thirdly, there are two contending establishments engaged in the appropriation of information and knowledge. On the one hand, there is the state intervention in education, as most citizens are unable to afford education. As opposed to this, there is a move by the private sectors to corporationize education and commoditify knowledge in market-oriented strategies. This contradiction was recently highlighted in two opposing slogans. It read, "Education cannot be given free," and "Knowledge is not for sale." This is dialectics for you. Friends, over thousands of years, we have searched for knowledge. 5th century BC, Greek philosophers had a legacy of questioning the existence of reliable knowledge and objective knowledge. 6th century BC, India witnessed a debate on perfect knowledge as described in the Brahmajala Sutra. In early Sanskrit and Pali, there are terms such as vidya and buddhi, meaning knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment. Knowledge and wisdom, according to the Kalama Sutra, could be realized by developing an uninhibited spirit of analytical inquiry. Conversely, humans also have a long history of destroying knowledge. From the burning of libraries in 1st century BC Alexandria to 11th century Nalanda University in India and the 1981 destruction of Jaffna Library in Sri Lanka provides a long list of such debased behavior. The destruction of repositories of knowledge and heritage sites is now recognized by UNESCO as cultural heritage, cultural genocide. I will therefore approach the problem under 4 headings. The first, humanistic education contesting the colonized mind. The ideology of education under colonialism was aimed at expunging memory and pre-colonial classical culture. That was to be replaced with Western elitist culture and in the production of a third-line petty administrator or the subaltern. Antonio Gramsci identified domination and hegemony as processes of control, while Frantz Fanon described how the colonized mind, colonial domination and hegemony diluted national culture and indigenous knowledge. Domination and hegemony has to be challenged by a counter-hegemony, which was carried out by intellectuals and education. In mid-19th century, South Asia revivalist movement of national education was spearheaded mainly by Ram Mohan Roy and later by Rabindranath Tagore. In Sri Lanka, later it was carried out by the Buddhist Theosophical Society and Hindu revivalist organizations. A series of schools were established that became vibrant centers of Renaissance culture. The doors of these schools were open to children and faculty from all social and economic categories and all ethnic and religious communities in Sri Lanka and overseas. Elitism based on Westernization was consciously discouraged. The process of decolonization was introduced through a well-tuned synthesis of South Asian and Western classical culture, along with sciences. This was the best of the liberal arts tradition. Colonel Henry Olcott, alumni of Wisconsin-Madison, introduced in 1886 to democratize and humanize education. During the same period, Rabindranath Tagore articulated the ideal of the universal man based on mutual understanding of cultures and cooperation among people. In 1901, he founded the Shantiniketan, or the sacred space for knowledge, as his gift to humanities. By 1921, he elevated the school to the Humanistic University of Vishwabharat. It was a unique poetic creation, blending the best of Eastern and Western cultures. Post-colonial subversion of knowledge and inclusiveness. One of the critical challenges we faced in post-colonial South Asia is bridging ethnic, religious, and cultural premises with a futuristic vision. In the decade of 1960, these contradictions were expressed in Sri Lanka with the schools takeover by the state, signaling the terminal period of liberal education. Simultaneous emergence of vigorous exclusionist nationalism resulted in a fractured society. Post-colonial changes in education had a devastating impact on my generation and after. The free flow of knowledge to the next generation was retarded. Sectarian biases and prejudices and political interference in education came to be institutionalized. The long-term consequence of this tragedy was the outbreak of several youth uprisings, a terrorist war of attrition, and a culturally lumpenized society. Let me briefly discuss different segments that directly impacted knowledge dissemination centers, and public intellectuals. The government takeover of schools was carried out to democratize education and universality of education, which was a success. However, the intellectual ideal of imparting knowledge was compromised. The school curriculum had no relevance to the social context of the pupil in particular. Textbooks became increasingly inward-looking and parochial and lacked any critical thinking and intellectual inquiry. The most alarming aspect is the manner in which the textbooks have either distorted facts or purged information, especially those depicting the diversity of South Asia and gender roles. The wrath unleashed upon the intellectual and textbooks and the communalization of education in the 1970s stands out as one of the darkest chapters in South Asian history. One of my mentors, Professor Sarvapalli Gopal at JNU, called it the fear of history. Similarly, my friend, the late Reggie Siriwardena, novelist and social activist, noted that in the history of communal conflict in Sri Lanka, education is one of the principal battlegrounds. There's also a growing emphasis on the biological and the hard sciences over social sciences and humanities. I listened in 1970 to Noam Chomsky in New Delhi, who spoke of a healthy balance between the sciences and the social sciences and humanities. He stated, I quote, rather than dehumanize the sciences, we ought to view science as a social activity, as a process to determine the manner in which its products will be used and the social purpose they will serve, unquote. Some analysts contend that the impersonalization of sciences, devoid of its social relevance, has only produced culturally impoverished nerds and aesthetically dull-witted technocrats. In a politically volatile, dependent society and economy, when major structural alterations are set in motion, education is the first victim, with healthcare coming as close second. Students in a global context suffer from multiple tragedies our generation fostered on them. They are entrapped in a vicious and substandard tuition market and crushed under a curriculum that is dreadfully boring, unimaginative, and does not encourage creative thinking. We need to question ourselves how and why conflict zones emerge and the creation of dissenting groups. At least in South Asia, we must congratulate ourselves for creating the nursery of anarchism. It is not their fault that they do not speak the right international language, that they are not members of affluent social circles, or have access to right schools, or lack social connections and networking. Public intellectuals and corporate education. At the other end of the spectrum, it is not only students, but their teachers and mentors are also threatened. South Asian and global academics are pushed towards corporationizing and commodifying education and knowledge. Under World Bank and IMF directions, I quote, "The academic must deliver its research output with speed and reliability resembling that of the corporate world and appealing to the global marketplace," unquote. The University Grants Commission in South Asia demand benchmarking, balance scorecard, REA, quality control, and a number of publication, citations, and overloaded academic programs looking at student credit hour production. The demand made by the private sector for marketable students, introduced by World Bank program, thrust the course unit system under higher education. The dependent economy in my country cannot digest this system, and higher education has gone into a major crisis mode. Academics need not think and behave like their corporate counterparts, who treat academic departments as cost centers and revenue production units. What the World Bank and the IMF imposed on South Asia originated at MIT, Harvard Business School, and disseminated through IBM, Oracle, and SAP. Inclusiveness and the liberal arts as remedial strategies. In his prison notebooks, Gramsci stated that the aim of education is to create the fundamental values of humans, the intellectual self-discipline and the moral independence which are necessary. Two central ideas in his vision are humanism and international consciousness. One of the critical factors for us is to recognize diversity and inclusiveness as a social reality. All educational institutions in South Asia need to introduce intercultural curriculum in a multicultural society. It is also based on respect for other cultures and look beyond the narrow confines of the monolinguistic compartmentalized curriculum. This critical social and cultural function of education must be located within a liberal and egalitarian system of education where knowledge is communicated across cultural borders. The need of the hour is to acceptance of the plural society that can thrive only within a liberal education rubric. Having interacted with liberal arts schools in the USA for over 30 years, I deeply appreciate its gifted academic and intellectual environment. Liberal arts schools in the USA is a gift to humanity. It is the best of humanist education and centers of critical thinking. M.N. Roy, in fact, stated that education for democracy does not only teach just writing and reading, but in making people conscious of their humanness. Education means to help them to think, to apply their reason. My friend, the late Ravindra Kumar, former director of the Nehru Memorial Museum in New Delhi, noted that while the economic aspect of education fosters skills, the critical role of education is critical for social sustenance. This is because while On the one hand, education reproduces certain traditions and values. It is also expected, on the other hand, to install the notion of curiosity and innovation and also examine conventional wisdom and inherited values in the minds of the young. This is a critical social and cultural function of education coalescing with knowledge information through formal and informal learning. He then concluded that the location of a liberal arts and egalitarian system of education is an imperative. Knowledge is in theory communicable across cultural borders and that persons of any cultural background are capable of using. Arjun Appadore suggested the need to produce a student who is a humanist and consciously thinks beyond borders and center periphery models. A paradigm shift is also needed with reference to the region itself. As against South Asia, the colonial construct, Indian Ocean Rim may be viewed as a more rational application of regionalization. This definition will provide the students with a far more flexible regional concept that is based on historical and ecological boundaries. We then are in a better position to understand and apply multiculturalism and intercultural reforms in education, which must grow out of a desire for social justice. For this, we need to have a more accurate picture of politics, history, culture, identities, gender studies, etc., beyond the parochial rubric known to us. This will prepare the student for a global citizenship in a shrinking world. These are distinctions between knowledge and skills. Education as a vehicle of change for construction and sustenance. Multidisciplinary research into intercultural inquiry. Humanizing the sciences. The need for internationalizing and diversifying higher education. Awakening of the next generation to the complexities of global economy. Problem-oriented and issue-related curriculum. Heritage and museum as portals of knowledge. Heterogeneous faculty and students are among other aspects of this long list of achievements. As Nussbaum states, there are some of the vital areas that have to be absorbed into a system of cosmopolitan education. South Asia, which is at crossroads today, needs to rethink its educational policy as a gift to the next generation. This runs parallel to the vision and mission of humanists such as Tagore, M.N. Roy, and Alcott, and the ideals and wealth we once possessed and then lost after independence. We must not fear globalization, but work towards the contraction of cultural spaces through globalization and reorient the existing mindset from the narrow spectrum, compartmentalized time, space, and cultural rubric. The post-war scenario has placed Sri Lanka at a crossroads. That is, whether we venture along the old destructive, parochial, and confrontational path, or alternatively move along a path of trust, understanding, and accommodation so vitally needed to the long-term sustenance of this country. In conclusion, I wish to quote some statements from scholars. Amitabh Ghosh spoke of the archipelago of hope, creating those sanctuaries that remain, I quote, stubbornly open to the flow of opinion, stubbornly hospitable to imagined enemies, stubbornly resistant to flood waters that seek to grind all forms of life into uniform grains of sand. Edward Said recognized it as a complex genealogy. As Ananda Kumaraswamy noted, we must become windows on each other's past, our souls reflected in each other, and open the universe a little more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a strong criticism, I'm not sure how many friends I'll have after I complete this. But we need to have a greater understanding of the macro situation and also the vertical situation, touching everything at the grassroots level. I'm sure listening to what the PGIHS has achieved, and I'm happy that I was a founder member of it originally, and I also taught in the postgraduate institute. You are looking at a futuristic vision to the PGIHS. The curriculum you have introduced, at least even at the postgraduate level, will open the window for critical thinking and also multi and interdisciplinary research. So I'll thank the Vice Chancellor and Suresh and the Postgraduate Institute for this kind invitation. I wish you good luck for these research sessions and also the sustenance of this institution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful and thought-provoking words on the role of education. You have certainly given us many ideas for serious consideration. Finally, to propose the vote of thanks at the PGIHS Research Congress 2020-2021, I invite the chairperson of the Congress, Professor W.A. Lianage.
Reverend members of the clergy, the chief guest, our keynote speaker, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Director, PGIHS, the Dean of Faculty of Arts, former Dean, Faculty of Arts, former Director, PGIHS, Deans of other faculties, and Directors of other postgraduate institutes, the members of the Board of Management, the chairpersons and members of the Board of Studies, the teaching panel of the PGIHS and other special invitees, administrative staff, presenters, and postgraduate students. At the end of the inauguration of this PGIHS Research Congress 2020, just before the beginning of our research presentations, I am delighted to propose this vote of thanks. Even during this ongoing pandemic, we were able to hold this research congress. And this is yet another example that shows the resilience of human spirit in a time of a great tragedy. This is also an occasion to showcase our unity, collegiality, and the commitment to research. On behalf of the Director of the PGIHS, Board of Management, and the Organizing Committee, I would like to express our gratitude to His Excellency, Mr. Gopal Bagle, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, for gracing this ceremony as the chief guest. Sir, thank you for being with us. We collectively recall today numerous intellectual and cultural connections between our countries, and those connections must continue and flourish. Thank you, everyone, from the Office of the Indian High Commission in Colombo and the Deputy High Commissioner of India in Kandy. Madam, thank you for being with us. I would like to express our immense gratitude to Professor Sudarshan Seneviratne for being our keynote speaker on this occasion. It is always a pleasure to listen to Professor Seneviratne. In your speech, you have pointed to some important aspects of quality postgraduate education. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor M.D. Lamavansa, a renowned researcher himself, thank you for all your guidance and being here today with us. and reminding us the significance of closer connections between different branches of knowledge. I would like to thank the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Terence Madhujit, and the Dean of Faculty of Arts, Dr. Prabhat Dekanayaka, former Dean of the Faculty, Professor O.G. Dayaratna Banda, and for your presence today and the words of encouragement and support. I want to thank the Registrar, Bursar, librarian, all the professors, senior academics, and administrative staff, non-academic staff for being here today at the inauguration and for all other activities that will follow. I extend my sincere thanks to other deans of the faculties, directors of postgraduate institutes, members of Board of Management, to the chairpersons, and all the members of the Board of Studies, the members of the PGIHS teaching panel, and other invitees for your gracious presence at this event today. This inaugural ceremony is a ceremony, an essential ceremony, and a memorable one. But the core of our Congress is the technical sessions that will begin shortly. The printed volume our invitees already have in their hands will attest to the fact that we are onto something intellectually worthwhile and stimulating. So I would like to thank our presenters, many of whom are our own postgraduate students, who have selected the PGIHS Congress as an outlet for their research findings. I hope that you will gain valuable experience in presenting your research and engaging in academic exchange with others. To the panel of reviewers, chairpersons, discussants, and evaluators of technical sessions, I thank you very much. I would like to express my deep appreciations of your contribution towards the academic content of the Congress. And of course, special thank to the editorial committee for getting the proceedings printed in time. A research congress of this nature is possible only because of the committed, dedicated contributions of many. Therefore, I am indeed grateful to all those who contributed their time, effort, and services in making this event a reality. The former director of PGIHS, Professor Ananda Jayavikrama, during whose time much of this research congress was done, like much of the activities were done. The present director, Professor Suresh Dimel, you both deserve our appreciation for your leadership and commitment to the institution in general and to the Congress in particular. I also appreciate the dedication of the commitment of the chairpersons and members of the subcommittees of the Research Congress. Dr. Prabhat Dekanayaka, Professor Sakuntala Yatigamana, Dr. Purnika Silagama, Professor Tilak Hevavasam, Professor Vasanta Atukorala, Dr. Anuruddha Kankanamge, Dr. Sudesh Mantilaka, Dr. Shyamanta Subhasinga, and all the members of their respective committees worked enthusiastically to make our Congress a success. I would like to say a special word of thanks to the Assistant Registrar, Mr. K.M.C.U. Champika, Assistant Bursar, Mr. M.H.M. Riaz, the Program Officer, Ms. Nilanti Rajaguru, and the entire team of PGIHS staff who put in a lot of extra time and effort to make this event a reality. This year, conference happens in online mode, which required a whole lot of additional technical support. The technical team worked tirelessly during all these months. Mr. Daminda Rajapaksha, Mr. Kapila Bandara, Mr. Sahan Seneviratna, Mr. Tharindu Liyanage, Mr. WNSR Karuna Tilaka, big thank to you all. Finally, a special word of appreciation to the Congress Secretariat, where the key personnel were Ms. Kalpani Dambagolla and Ms. Aveshi Biangwala, who was also the compeer today, for all the work that took place behind the scenes. Thank you very much. I wish you all an intellectually stimulating day. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Now, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Gopal Bagle, will present a token of appreciation to Professor M.D. Lamavansa, Vice Chancellor of University of Peradeniya, and Director PGIHS, Professor Suresh J.S. Dimel. Yeah. To Dean, Faculty of Arts, former Director, PGIHS, and Chairperson of the PGIHS Research Congress 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the inaugural session of the PGIHS Research Congress 2021. Please stand for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Siri Barini, Surandi Ati Sobhamana Lanka. Ranya Dhanaya Nekamal Palaguru Piri Jaya Bhumiya Ranya. Apahata Sapa Siri Sata Sadhana, Jivanaye Mata. Pili Kanu Mena Apabhakti Puja, Namo Namo Mata. Upper Sri